Sigmund Freud didn't exactly invent the idea of the conscious versus unconscious mind, but he certainly was responsible for making it popular, and this was one of his main contributions to psychology. Freud developed a topographical model of the mind, whereby he describes the features of the mind's structure and function. Freud used the analogy of an iceberg to describe the three levels of the mind. Freud describes the conscious mind, which consists of all the mental processes of which we are aware, and this is seen as the tip of the iceberg. For example, you may be feeling thirsty at this moment and decide to get a drink. The preconscious contains thoughts and feelings that a person is not currently aware of, but which can easily be brought to consciousness. It exists just below the level of consciousness, before the unconscious mind. The preconscious is like a mental waiting room, in which thoughts remain until they succeed in attracting the eye of the conscious. This is what we mean in our everyday usage of the word available memory. For example, you're presently not thinking about your mobile telephone number, but now it is mentioned you can recall it with ease. Mild emotional experiences may be in the preconscious, but sometimes traumatic and powerful negative emotions are repressed, and hence not available in the preconscious. Finally, the unconscious mind comprises mental processes that are inaccessible to consciousness, but that influence judgments, feelings, or behavior. According to Freud, the unconscious mind is the primary source of human behavior. Like an iceberg, the most important part of the mind is the part you cannot see. Our feelings, motives, and decisions are actually powerfully influenced by our past experiences and stored in the unconscious. Freud applied these three systems to his structure of the personality, or psyche, the id, ego, and superego. Here, the id is regarded as entirely unconscious, whilst the ego and superego have conscious, preconscious, and unconscious aspects. While we are fully aware of what is going on in the conscious mind, we have no idea what information is stored in the unconscious mind. The unconscious contains all sorts of significant and disturbing material, which we need to keep out of awareness because they are too threatening to acknowledge fully. The unconscious mind acts as a repository, a cauldron of primitive wishes and impulses kept at bay and mediated by the preconscious area. For example, Freud found that some events and desires were often too frightening or painful for his patients to acknowledge, and believed such information was locked away in the unconscious mind. This can happen through the process of repression. The unconscious mind contains our biologically based instincts, eros and thanatos, for the primitive urges for sex and aggression. Freud argued that our primitive urges often do not reach consciousness because they are unacceptable to our rational, conscious selves. People use a range of defense mechanisms, such as repression, to avoid knowing what their unconscious motives and feelings are. Freud emphasized the importance of the unconscious mind, and the primary assumption of Freudian theory is that the unconscious mind governs behavior to a greater degree than people suspect. Indeed, the goal of psychoanalysis is to reveal the use of such defense mechanisms and thus make the unconscious conscious. Freud believed that the influences of the unconscious reveal themselves in a variety of ways, including dreams and in slips of the tongue, now popularly known as Freudian slips. Freud gave an example of such a slip when a British member of parliament referred to a colleague with whom he was irritated as the honourable member from hell instead of from Hull.